Greetings from Nelson, far southwest Victoria. Nelson's a coastal village. It's on the Glenelg River, which is also known as Bakara. And the mighty Glenelg starts in the Grampians and makes its way down through the townships of Balmoral, and then on to Casterton, and then to Dartmoor, and reaches the sea at Nelson. Today I want to talk to you about a proposed wind farm that a company, Neon, have under investigation through a planning inquiry at the moment. And the wind farm is, depending where you are in Nelson, about 4 kilometres, 4.5 kilometres to 6 kilometres from Nelson. And Nelson's on the perimeter of quite a few protected areas: Discovery Bay, Coastal Park, Glenelg River National Park. Through all those areas, we've got the Great Southwest Walk and also the Glenelg River Canoe Trail. But the reason for my interest in this project is I have a home in Nelson, and the proximity of the wind farm is going to impact Nelson, whether it be transport during construction, the visibility of the wind turbines, the impact on wildlife. There's quite a lot of wildlife here that use the sky and the air to move between wetlands and forested areas. The red-tailed black cockatoo, the brolga, the Australasian bittern, to name some of the more endangered species, but of course there's a lot of other species. Anyway, the subject of my investigation today is to look at the visibility from a part of the river near my home. It's about 100 metres, a bit slippery there, we've had a lot of rain, from our house, and we wander down here from our pad to fish, glass of wine, to enjoy the views from the river. So Neon, with their environmental effects statement, have generally not addressed the visibility of the turbines from the river until the inquiry started, and some people have raised the visibility as an issue, in particular my submission. So that's submitter 212, where I've done some view shed analysis, and I feel the turbines will be visible from the river. So Neon have got a professional person do some photo simulations of what the turbines might look like, and they've downplayed the visibility. I think their submissions have identified the turbines will be visible, but only in part. So I was interested to see for myself, what the visibility is, not through photo simulation, but through a real simulation. So here I am on the river near our home here on a riverbank. So it's an interesting part of the river from the perspective of the visibility of the wind farm, because generally the river near Nelson runs north-south, and therefore you can't see turbines because of the riverbank. But in this case, as we come around to Simsons Landing, the river travels from east to west, and that reach in the east-west allows viewers to look directly to the east, which looks towards the Kentbruck wind farm. And from this particular point, even though I'm 4 metres above the river, you can see here good views quite a distance to the horizon from this vantage point. So what I'm looking to do today is to set up a pole that visualises what the wind turbines might look like in the vegetation. So the view of the proponent here, Neon, is that the vegetation will obscure the wind farms from view, or the turbines, the blades and the hub and the towers. So using viewshed analysis with a digital elevation model, you can see that the turbines will be visible, but they're claiming they won't be visible with the vegetation along the riverbanks. So the way I'm proposing to do that today is to set up a pole 448 metres away in the vegetation. And then to look at where that pole sits with respect to the vegetation, but also with the surrounding landscape, and it's more importantly its visibility from this point on the river. So the way I've calculated the height of the pole is to use coordinate geometry. So in another life, when I'm not on the end of a GoPro and talking to you for a video, I'm a licensed surveyor and studied at university, graduated with an honours degree. So the Cartesian geometry calculations to calculate a line of sight to a wind tower is relatively straightforward. And then using trigonometry and a terrain model and a longitudinal section, I've been able to calculate how high a pole would be to intersect the direct line of sight between me here as an observer to the top of the blades and also to the hub. So those calculations I'll put here in the video on a link, and you can check and look at how that's been done. One of the tools being used today is a handheld GPS. This is a Garmin eTrex 22X. A handheld GPS usually gives about 3 metres plus or minus 3 metres accuracy. So for what we're trying to do today, I feel that's adequate. We can also check eastings and northings, latitudes and longitudes using aerial photography. So if we go in here to the waypoint manager, I've got a point marked called observer. So this is the point of observation to the proposed wind tower. As I move around there, you can see the waypoint's recalculating itself, so it's showing as I move close to the riverbank it's 7 metres, and if we move back up here it'll looks like I'm a little bit closer in there somewhere. So I've only just turned this on, so it usually takes a little while to settle down. There's the UTM, if you like, or the map grid of Australia, eastings and northings. So the point observer is 499,853 east and 579,0310 north. If I navigate to that, you can see there that it's telling me that I'm arrived at the observer point. And then it should tell me that waypoint, actually, what its elevation is. So it's, oh yeah, there you go there. So there's a drop of rain there. So there you go. Its elevation is 4 metres. So the digital terrain model, in fact, does say 4 metres. So and if we sort of work around the river level at being mean sea level, looking at the river down there, you can see, oh yeah, we're about 4 metres. So that, and then for the point of line of sight calculations, I'm working on that. My eyesight's about 1.8 metres above that. So in actual fact, that the line of sight to the top of the pole to the hypothetical 270 metre high wind tower is from an observer that's got an eyesight of around 1.8 metres. Other tools of the trade in use today are the handy old 50 metre tape measure. This is a good quality Yamano Stylon. It's 50 metres long, so I'm going to use that to check the height of the pole that we're erecting, or the structure. Now, in terms of the pole, I've put together here 2 aluminium ladders. So one's an extension ladder, the other one is just a straight section of ladder, and then I've got some PVC stormwater pipes. So these usually come in 6 metre lengths. I've got one 6 metre lengths, and I've got some shorter lengths depending how it all looks when I get it set up. I'll have to adjust how much of the PVC is put on the ladder, and then it's a matter of erecting the ladder and restraining it so I can go and observe it from the observer point and get an understanding of the visibility. So I'm here on Casuarina Drive, which is on the line of sight between the point we were at before on the riverbank and the closest wind tower. So my record's using the study by GHD, which Appendix M of the EES, there's an appendix in that, and it's got eastings and northings of wind towers. So I think I'm working on wind tower 22. It appears to be the closest to Nelson. It's calculations here, it's a little bit over 6 kilometres. It's all marked up on the drawings. And then this point is 448 metres. I'm going to try and set up the height pole, the height simulation pole. So I'm in Casuarina Drive. It's on the northern outskirts of Nelson. It's up near the national park, where the Lower Glenelg National Park starts, working up towards the South Australian border. It's near my home, and it's just near Simsons Landing, which is a boat launching area. So most fishermen who spend any time on the river will know where Simsons Landing is. And this particular road is a fire access road, and it's called Casuarina Drive. So the vegetation's reasonably high. It's not big forest by any means. It's windswept. We're not that far from the coast. We've got some casuarinas, and the main eucalypt here seems to be the swamp gum. I think Eucalyptus ovata. And I came down here the other day doing some recce, thinking, oh God, this vegetation looks quite high, and what is in fact the height of the vegetation going to impede visibility of the wind turbines. So before going to the trouble of setting up a height pole, which is going to take a bit of effort, I thought, well, how high is the vegetation? So I've used, just to get perspectives, I've used this power pole here as a reference, just for my own purposes, just to see whether it was going to be worthwhile to set up a height pole. So using my clinometer and a 50 metre tape as a baseline, I've measured out 15, 25 and then 50 metres, and measured the inclination angle to the top of the power pole 3 times as a check, and I got 7 metres plus the height of me, which is about 2 metres, give or take 20 centimetres or so. So that power pole is about 9 metres, sitting roughly at the height of the vegetation canopies. So the pole, I've calculated that the height at this point that intersects the top of the simulation pole, that intersects the direct line of sight to the top of the turbines, is 17 metres, and then the hub will be visible at 10 metres. So that's still above this pole. So, I figure, well, this is certainly the hub, and the revolving blades are going to be, I think, visible above the vegetation from this particular point on the river. But anyway, the only one way to see that is to set up the height pole, my ladders and PVC, and to see, is it visible? We're back on the GPS on Casuarina Drive, and I've got a pre-entered point called Pole at Nelson, the waypoint. And if we go in there, we can see the coordinates of that point. Easting 500285 and northing 5790187. So you can have a look at those and compare to the point in the calculations. So if I go and set that point out, it tells me I'm arriving nearby. I've got a whole heap of data there from, if I go into, it should give me the compass. It tells me I'm 10 metres away from the point and 100. So I'll just see if I can find that point over here. So 3 metres, 4 metres, so yeah, around here somewhere. And then if I go back to the waypoint manager and go in here, I can also set out the observer point, which is where we were before, and I can see from if I find the compass, it's telling me I'm 453 3 metres away. So I think I said before 448. So we're in the region of the accuracy of the handheld GPS, which is 3 metres. So if I move back in here, it's going to get smaller. So there we are. We're within 2 metres of our point there. So it's vegetation's a little bit thick here. I'm constrained by where I set this pipe pole up, but certainly the elevation of the point is not going to change. We're on the DTM. The point digitised using aerial photography is consistent with where we're at, and yeah, I'll get busy and see if I can get the height pole up. Now I've rigged up this ladder with the extensions, and I'll just run through the measurement. So we've got the end of the ladder here at 0. Yep. So walking up here, extension ladder, then the set ladder, and then the end of the ladder we've got 9.8 metres. So, and then I've got 10 metres. So I put high-vis bunting around that where we start the stormwater pipe, because that marks the intersection of the line of sight from the observer to the hub on the wind turbine. So that's the bit the blades go around. And then if we keep going up here, we've got 17 metres to another bit of bunting, which is the top of the blade. So that's the edge of the circumference that the blades go around. We've erected the height pole using a block and tackle, and we've got it tied off 3 times, or in a tripod type setup, and hopefully she hangs on, because it's pretty high up there in the wind, and there is a wind today. We've had, it's the 8th of June, so it's a long weekend, and we've had 2 cold fronts come through, so that was the biggest risk for today's exercise, is wind was going to unsettle everything. And the PVC is pretty flexible, so it could blow over. How'd you get on?
I've ridden the bike from where we've put the height pole up round to the viewing point that you have marked on the map. So I'm standing here on the bank looking out across the river towards the direction of the height pole. I can clearly see the pole from here. I can see the bottom orange marker when the pole sways, but the majority of that is in the treetops. But I can clearly see the top orange marker on the pole.
Okay.
And I can clearly see what would be probably 3 to 4 metres, maybe a bit more of the pole height as well.
What, below the hub height in the trees?
Below the tip height in the trees, yep.
Okay, because there's 7 metres between the bottom high vis area and the top high vis bunting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then it is probably more towards the 4.5 metres that I can view quite clearly.
So what about the middle? I've got black straps around the middle. Can you see those? It's in between the
black straps, yes.
Yeah. Okay, well we might measure that when we get it down.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, no worries.
No worries. Right, so where can you see that? Is that well above the trees?
There's a clear view to them, but there are a couple of trees behind, and they're just above the tree branches behind.
Oh, yeah.
So,
yeah, right, interesting.
Yeah.
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 Very good. Righto, thank you.
I've taken a photo as well. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Right. After Susie said she could see the low point and the high point, I've dash down with the Sony 6300 and taken a bit of a panoramic and a few shots. So I've got it looks like, because the pole's of course closer than the wind turbine and there's vegetation behind the lower section, the hub may not be visible from that particular point, but of course there's plenty of these turbines, and the proponent Neon and their expert is saying, well, there won't be an impact because you can only see the tips and it obscures by the vegetation. And I feel now that I've set this up that you will be able to see the blades, and they will be moving, revolving, and they'll be quite visible and will have an impact on the wilderness landscape that we have here in Nelson, nestled in the national parks and wetlands and coastal parks and what have you. So yeah, we're on the northern tip of Nelson, tucked back on the river in the vegetation, and we'll be able to see the turbines. The modelling I've done on this case is the closest turbine to Nelson, but when you have a look at the DEM, or the digital elevation model, there's 3 turbines sort of in a row from in a line of sight from this particular point. So, and they're, as you go back to the east, they're higher, so you know, they're further up on a hill. So I don't think they'll be any less visible, or much less visible anyway. And certainly once you get down south onto Oxbow Lake, if you're canoeing down to the mouth, they're going to be very visible because there's no vegetation and there's no topography. Yeah, so it's an interesting exercise. I don't think if they get built, we won't be able to escape them. They'll be definitely have an impact on the landscape. GoPro, stop recording.